We may or may not.
All right. So this is a meeting between Jenna and I. We figured we'd just record this just in case we decide to share this with everyone. It came to our attention that a lot of you guys really don't seem to know exactly what shadow work is. And there's a lot of reasons for this. And we were going to do a workshop to tell you guys this so we could do Q&A, but just timing things with the holidays is really awkward. And we figured that this information is so important that we needed to just take the time to try and get it to you in the most efficient way as possible. So this recording is just Jenna and I talking about what we're
gonna do.
Yeah, like what we were gonna do if it's gonna be like a workshop. And I think that it's cool because it gives you guys a little bit of a glimpse on what meetings are like between Jenna and I. So yeah, this is absolutely unscripted. This is just Jenna and I trying to figure out what's important to share with you guys.
It's the behind the scenes of how we get together and say, what are we doing next? How should it look? Should it be done conversational? Should it be turned into a series? Like, how should it be broken down? And the answer is kind of all of the above. Like, I think what you're saying in offering different levels of how deep of a dive we want to go. Because this is so, I mean, there's trillions of books on it and millions of different modalities on how to do it. But what we're just trying to do is like, we got to get the basics out, just the basics. So what I did before our meeting, like literally just today, is just wrote down, I think the best way to start is to do the basic, like who, what, when, where, and whys. So I just did little jots on that. And so what I thought I would do is kind of give you my impression on like the basics that come up with each of these things, and then turn it over and see if there's anything to add from that. And then once we've done that, we can just fill in the blanks of anything else that didn't happen with the basic, you know, who, what, when, where, hows. Does that sound okay? Or did you have
I dig it. Let's do it.
Okay, so I started with the who. And from my perspective, I put, you know, everyone with a heartbeat, everybody that is incarnated on the planet who has a subconscious or unconscious or anything like that. Oh, and then I'm also segmenting like the who on a couple different ones. So like not only the who is privy to or maybe in need of having shadow work or whatever, but then also like who you go to for shadow work was another element on there, where we could talk about kind of the differences of what generally therapists are able to offer with that versus what coaches or people that are trained more specifically for the shadow work end of it. We could talk about that if people are interested. Anyway, that's what I have for the who. What else would you want to add to that?
Do you want to just kind of dive into it? Let's just dive into that. Like, I agree that I think that shadow work is a vital part of human experience. And without it, we're just fucking running around on autopilot all the time. And like, I agree that it's important for people to really understand the difference between like therapy and shadow work, or how they work together, and who to go to for what, and like what the different members of your like team are going to be doing for you. And when I say team, I also mean your therapist and your psychiatrist and your shadow work mentor as well. I think that they should be like all of them.
General support network. Yeah.
Right.
And then just to kind of break that down, and I know you've said it in TikTok videos in your own kind of way, but the general idea is just knowing that traditional Western trained therapists have a lot of more limitations on certain things we can't even, or they can't bring up, or certain topics have to be reported and this and that. So sometimes that conceals us from feeling like we can completely unearth like our deepest stuff, because we know that, oh my God, if I tell them about this time where I was an accomplice in something, like they're going to have to rat on me or something. There's that. But then also a lot of them are trained to work out what is already happening, and it's a lot of traditional therapy is about validating circumstances, which are concrete of like what's happening today in our outside world between me and another person. So that's a little more externalized, whereas shadow work, I see it more as being very internalized. And it's sorting out the origin point of the reflection that the external world is showing is just literally a mock-up of what something's already contained within us that we can actually not fix, but meet at the origin level. Did you want to add? I know you have differences and you have a team, and was there anything else you want to talk about on that, the who part?
Right.
There?
The play between like a lot of my clients with their therapists and my like role in their team is that as well. So there could be something that we uncover in a shadow work session, some deep part of your programming that actually affects a huge part of your outside world, that a therapist can help you through as well. They're going to educate you more about the way that your brain works from their perspective and their understanding, but there's so much more to it.
Yeah.
But I do want to stress very much that shadow work and therapy isn't an either or.
Right. Yes.
It is best done together. The more perspectives you can get and the more support you can get through your mental health care process, the better, in my opinion. And I completely agree with you, Jenna, about how people can come to me and talk about an experience that they've had with like spirit, or with as being an empath, or as being a witch, that they would not necessarily feel comfortable with going to Western medicine to talk about. So that's another really good place to where that overlap happens, and why you would need both.
And it is so tandem too, because there is so many good things to be said about like, it does seem like a lot of coaches and people that do the work that we do just naturally are very intuitive and tend to be connected with spirit and tend to kind of get like how to do shadow work more in a download type of thing versus a textbook type of thing. Whereas when we go to Western or, typical psychology and stuff, they're going to be really great at all the vernacular, all of the diagnosis, all of the support that you may need if you feel like you need medications and support in those kind of ways. And there's lots of amazing exercises and journaling prompts and things that they can offer too. So I do love that it's being packaged more as a team. But I also want to say, like, some people only have experience in that world, and it is can be very, very different by seeing a coach. So like, we've been to a lot of people like that see me like have been to 10 different therapists over their lives, and just like one after another didn't work for them. And so like, thank goodness we have people that can offer alternative ways of doing it. And I think a lot of coaches also are neurodivergent too. So you can find that because we don't really fit into the society or the book learning and that kind of stuff, but all of us have a lot to give, having been through so much trauma ourselves. That the wounded healer like makes the best coaches, I think, in the long run too.
Right. And I think that covers the who, right?
I think we're good there.
That. And like, God, I had this like thing because I was thinking about this meeting yesterday, right? And so I'm at my desk thinking about like some of the things that I wanted to cover. And the whole idea of if I am, dang it, I hit a wall. I had a train wreck. But I think that we actually covered it, honestly, because I was like, I can't stress how much it's not an either or. It
Yes.
really isn't. And saying, if I'm seeing a therapist, then I don't need to do shadow work because I'm seeing a therapist, is
Right.
like saying I don't need to, I mean, it's just, it's not an either or.
Yeah.
See my train wreck? I totally
I
like,
do that all the
boom.
time. That's why I'm laughing. It's an endearing giggle. It's endearing. I totally know the train. Yeah. And then sometimes you're like, oh, bring that back. I can't, you can almost feel like it's coming back. And then there's those sometimes we're like, oh, that's gone. That's 100% gone, or I don't know where I'm going from here or whatever.
Yeah. So thank you for
But if
witnessing.
something, yeah, if something else is in the chamber that needs to come out, it'll come back. So no, no biggie. The what is definitely way more in depth.
That's
So
the money question right there.
Yeah. The way I pretty much described it as like a split in consciousness, the split in the flow of consciousness. So our consciousness, okay, so I wrote that down. I also wrote down having rupture without repair. That's the best like small bite-sized sandwich I could do, or bite-sized sandwich. I'm hungry now. In that, so basically the way I understand it, and the majority of people doing shadow work kind of agree on this, although I'm sure there are other perspectives, that most all of our programming or trauma is packed in before the age of 8. And when we get our eye teeth, and that's just simply because of like the plasticity, or like the way that we go into our mental rationale versus like the brainwave states that we're in a suggestible state before we get into our mental body, or whatever starts when we're about 8. So everything starts to poke at our system, our DNA, or all this stuff kind of gets packed in with a way of being, sort of a climate to who we are, what we expect, this kind of stuff. So all that programming gets put in really early, all the big traumas that we have, which literally a trauma just means simply rupture without repair. And a rupture could be, I dropped my ice cream cone and I'm sad. And if mom or dad says, you shouldn't have dropped your cone, or what's wrong with you? I said to hold both hands, or oh, stop crying. Or it could even be like the perfect seeming parent that says, oh, it's okay, you drop your cone, I'll get you another one, don't cry, or whatever. But still, anything that's telling us as a child that how we're feeling isn't accurate or isn't allowed in some way has to go somewhere for our survival. So in the ice cream example, the perfect thing, but no parent ever does this, by the way, nobody does. So there's no reason to really, I mean, we can carry whatever shame we need to because we're carrying, like, all emotions are okay, but like, we don't, in other words, you can't escape this. It's all part of programming, and everyone is programmed, and everyone also gets inherited or passes on programming, and until they don't and can learn more. But that's kind of why we're here. But like the appropriate way would be a child drops their cone, and if they're feeling sad and maybe embarrassed that they did that, would be for a parent or caregiver to get on their knees, get eye level, and say, oh my goodness, I see you dropped your cone and you're sad or you're crying. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be sad. I'd be sad too if I dropped my cone. I totally understand you. Are you feeling a little bit embarrassed too? It's okay to feel embarrassed. But what do we normally do? We say, it's okay, don't be embarrassed, or don't cry, or you're okay, or you're okay. And those are the best parents. Those aren't the parents that we even look at and be like, what's wrong with you for dropping your cone? I told you to do, And a lot of times that happens too, which is compounding. But then that creates two types of people out there too, that both have trauma. One just has the parents that like, shame on you, you stupid bastard, that everybody can point at their trauma. And then the other one has the more kind of covert, like, everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine. We're the perfect family on the outside, and is smiling and just gaslighting their fucking life to death, because that's not how they're feeling inside. Anyway, both have trauma. The ideal thing is just that all emotions are totally perfect, but nobody did that. So that little ice cream scenario of anger that's not allowed, that got shoved down, embarrassment that got shoved down, lives in that child at 4 years old, that scenario. And because it didn't have resolve, that energy is in their body. And their conscious thoughts are like, maybe I'll do this today, maybe I'll do this today. But their subconscious has this fracture of this energy that is about unexpressed anger and embarrassment, which in a law of attraction based mirrored reality as energy, because it's subconscious. So your mind's not going to, it's going to think it's some random thing in the loop of the world. It comes around again in a new scenario where you're dropping something. It may not even be dropping. You could be dropping the ball. It could be like missing a phone call or whatever it is. But the same feeling signature that we had at 4 years old in that cone repeats and repeats and loops over and over and over in our lives for us, as to be able to give space and hold space for the emotions that we weren't originally able to process. So we're looping and looping and looping with new scenarios all the time, but we're feeling that same thing over and over. And we can do 17,000 of them, and we can be 75 years old still chasing after that one time at Baskin Robbins when we were little. So that's the biggest what is that triggers, and how we can get into, but basically we're going to recognize these looping patterns, these triggers, and we get to finally be empowered to be the parent or caregiver that we never had by stepping back into the idea of these scenarios, following them back, and giving the repair to the original rupture by allowing the rightness of those original emotions, and to being able to self-regulate us now, because at that time that child didn't get regulation at all for their anger or their embarrassment. And so there's no resolve. And a lot of them didn't get the modeling from their parents on even how to do that. And so when you see coaches or people that are helping with shadow work, we help you to learn how to self-regulate by modeling regulation for you first, so that you can actually have that reparented thing that was the missing need initially. And we do that as training wheels for a while until you pick that up yourself, to where then when these scenarios come in, you're able to step back in that scene and have these beautiful inner child dialogues, and being able to be and coming to that eye level and telling yourself all the stuff that you needed to really give that repair to those situations. And when that happens, we call that integration, where we're allowing for that energy to come back, instead of us having a segment of 4 just kind of sitting here on the side that's reflecting all the time. It gets integrated in, oh, that's repaired, and I have this connection inside. And then after integration, not only do you have the relief of not having that loop in your life a bunch, but then you also are carrying all that power back, all that new sensation, which is a connection with self and love and empowerment, and I can regulate myself. And then so you're not only not mirroring this anymore, but your energy is also so much fuller, and you're able to attract more scenarios then that will loop of the repair and amazing nurturing relationship that's over and over and over. So it massively can like help your life, which gets into the like why later. But I'm sorry, like I mean, I can't make this. I can literally talk about this for like 13 hours straight. So and I know you have a lot to probably add. I just needed to go off on that little thing. So yeah, the what is rupture without repair, and in order what to do about it is basically integration.
Right.
What would you like to add to that?
Preach it.
For what?
That's basically what I had to add. I mean,
That sums it up. Or is there any other easier way to sum it up than that?
I love how you dove in. I just fucking
Aw.
the reason I call you my mentor is that like you are the one that taught me this shit. Well, how I basically describe it is without as many words because I train wreck on them often, but it's just the programming. It is acknowledging the programming, the way that our physical, actual brains were programmed in order to process our lives and our environments. And we have been running on this autopilot from birth until we realize that we're running on autopilot. And oftentimes that realization that you're running on autopilot is like an awakening, or when you start to become enlightened, is when you're like, wait a minute, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like what's really going on.
Yes.
And that usually happens when you go through an extremely, like, you get shaken. It doesn't happen when things are fluffy. It happens when you're like, I can't fucking take this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't do this, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
That's what makes you really look at what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
And so by using catalysts or triggers like Jenna's talking about, of when things happen to you, you're able to practice getting into an observer perspective and really looking at why is this happening? When did this happen the first time? What does it feel like? And where did this like feeling come from? Where did I learn that if this, then this? What's up with that? And so that is that's what shadow work, that's like the nutshell that I put shadow work in, is basically identifying and reprogramming those parts. And this is like, my approach is a little bit more on like logical, and Jenna comes in with the feelings thing, so we really overlap really well in that. Because me, it's all about understanding. If I understand what is like going on with something, or I understand where the pattern is coming from, then the healing and integration happens in a very like boop, boop, boop way for me. So, but yeah,
Why do you say that about me? Seriously, because I have feelings coach as sort of my tagline, but I feel like I suck more at the holding space for the emotions, and my talent actually is in the belief work. I'm just calling it more in the belief work. And we haven't gotten into this yet, but the reason also that these looping patterns come around is because like I said, we've got this kind of tethered to us because we have a scenario back when we're 4 that's literally like a ball and chain that we can't see. It's an energetic amalgamation of a bunch of like emotions that are unprocessed, and it just continues to be mirrored and triggered by other, it attracts situations similar to this. But so why we're also brought back to these scenarios are not only just to cause relief or kind of reparent the situation and allow ourselves to actually feel that anger, sadness, and embarrassment at the time of 4. But the other indicator of why we're brought back to these situations is because it's always going to be tied to a belief that we created at that time, especially if we're brought back to a scenario where we can see and remember the storyline really well, like, oh, this is an ice cream story. There are also triggers, because again, we can talk about this forever, that are triggers that are like, oh my God, I smell Old Spice and I'm having a panic attack, and there's no memory of anything for it. And we have no idea why we're seeming to be like irrationally feeling things. So just know that if you're ever irrationally feeling a trigger, just be there with the emotions. It doesn't need a storyline, or maybe we're not ready for the storyline to come up. If a storyline comes up where we can get to a belief, that can be helpful. And you can sort of do this like with this question: what must I be believing about myself right now in order for me to be feeling this way? That will always tell you what your belief is and point at it, even though and most of these beliefs, I mean, they're subconscious, but everybody thinks that it's seeing is believing, The outside world is just where it is. If this happens, then I know that then I resource my heart. when it's actually the opposite. It truly is believing is seeing. So because most of our beliefs also came to us before the age of 8, it doesn't matter what political leaning we have. If you had a television on before the age of 8 and there were news and then all this stuff, you can be absolutely programmed with these beliefs, like money doesn't grow on trees, just anything that parents said or the news said during that time, you subconsciously or unconsciously believe these things. And so how do we find that out? We use our external world and these catalysts or triggers to poke at us to uncover, this wouldn't have happened if I don't have a belief. And then we get excited about these gaps or these catalysts, because each one of them is such an amazing nugget to where we can find resolve, we can connect more with ourselves, we can find more safety, we can process now our emotions. We teach you how to process emotions with this too. I mean, all these things we can just dig in so much more. But the reason that we all have trouble processing our emotions now is because they were so big and scary when we were little that they feel more overwhelming than what we actually think that we can do. Because we were little kids when it happened, and there's big scary people telling us shame on you for dropping your cone, and we're like terrified. So we think that, whatever emotions aren't, or like that we would feel would feel like death to us. So that's why also having support and having a team to help with that, reminding you, kind of being a tether here to the reality and bringing you back so that you can go and re-experience these things in a very safe way. And you know that it's not going to be more than you can handle. As the 2021 version of yourself going in to do shadow work, I can tell you there's not a single person out there that can't do it. You already survived the trauma, or else you wouldn't be here now. So if you're doing this now, it can only be, it's so much better than what you think it is. It's just literally letting the monster get you, letting yourself feel it with the support and having help with the regulation. But anyway, so emotions are why we're brought back. And then also we're brought back, sometimes a memory will come up because it'll be like, oh, no way. That's where I learned that money didn't grow on trees. You might even hear something say that, and like, I couldn't have another ice cream cone because we couldn't afford it or whatever. It's like, oh my gosh. So not only at this ice cream situation did I learn things like, I believed that I couldn't express my emotions because mom said, don't cry. I might have made this mean that I'm clumsy and a terrible person because I dropped my cone. This could mean, I can't get support in my life. This could mean, like, just so many beliefs can come out. I believe this, all from one scenario. And then those are running every day and they're lodged in us. So when we're like, I'm a lazy fuck up who's blah, 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 and we're believing that. And then we have shit in the world constantly looping that back. Well, we certainly believe it then. So most of us are just like dripping with shame over believing stuff that is totally not true. So when we take you back into shadow work, not only are we processing the emotion, but we're also changing a belief. We're popping it, right? Think of beliefs as balloons, because the only thing that keeps a belief living is the fact you believe it. You have to believe it. So it's all we have to do is like bullshit it. We have to pop it somehow and just be like, how is this actually not true? How is it that so that's what we do too, is we rewire into what belief actually feels good to believe that also is more true. And then we start hunting for facts of how the new version is true. And sometimes we need a little bit of evidence for that, but we have to change the belief. We have to start hunting for it all the time, because we've been hunting for the traditional loop our whole life of that we're a complete lazy fuck up. And boy, do we get enough stuff repeating that. Well, just as much as that's looping for you, an equal amount of positive loop can be looping for you too when you change the belief. I'm telling you, the amount of change that you can have and experience in your life by doing shadow work is so huge, because all these traumas, we have all these mindsets and beliefs and energy kind of outside of ourselves, stuck in these, what I call REELs, reels, movie reels of times that are not right here in this now moment where you're hearing my voice. REAL. They're in reels. And when you're in reels, your whole world is just playing out those reels again for you, not to you, but for you, so that you wake up and recognize, oh, this feels a lot like that time when I was a kid. And, oh, I must be believing that. Feel it, correct the belief, you get all that energy back. And then your life just goes on fire.
Like I can't stress enough that the difference in your life and the way that you are interacting with absolutely every aspect of your life, the difference between pre-shadow work and post, or when you are working through shadow work, is like, it's a completely different way of navigating life.
Yes.
It's like, oh, okay, now I get it. Now it makes sense why I'm here, what I'm supposed to be doing, what the fuck is going on. Everything makes so much sense when you start living in reality instead of living on autopilot in this loop that is fucking constant suffering, like constant suffering about everything. And this is coming from someone that, like, multiple suicide attempts, lots of institutionalizations. I have been there. I have been breaths from ending my incarnation multiple times. And so for me to be here saying, oh my God, this is so different, and I'm so fucking happy that my guides kept me where I was in those moments and didn't allow me to check out.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what the fuck was going on. I do now.
Yeah.
So, like, that's the difference between, that's why shadow work is so important. And just like pausing right now, just the amount of information that has been expressed just in this time that we've talked now, this is why everyone is so vague when they are asked, what is shadow work? Where do I start? This is why you get the vague answers. It's not because people are trying to be like secretive or cryptic or anything like that. It's just because it affects so much of your experience, and it's so deep that it's hard to explain. And being a mentor, we kind of have to figure out how to explain this from our client's perspective. And that's tricky. I mean, it's based on where they are in their own journey and how much information they know. And so that's why it seems kind of cryptic. And that's why just saying this is what shadow work is doesn't really work. It would be like a whole book. And that's why there are whole books about this from a lot of different perspectives.
Yes. So. And tons of different modalities. And basically any modality that you do that gets you breathing in the now moment and gets you kind of reframing some of the beliefs that you had that aren't working for you. There's a million ways to do it. And so there isn't a right way. I've dabbled with so many different ones, been certified in different ones. And I'm always kind of tweaking what I do with my clients too. I had a way more formulaic kind of checkpointed way of doing it. And then I've gone rogue and realized what was working, what wasn't working, all this kind of stuff. And when I say working, all of it was necessary, appropriate for where we both were at the time. I've just learned, I don't know, let's just say it's morphed over time because I'm morphing. So I'll also be attracting people. That's the other thing. If you want to see some, and I put this on here too. I don't know where it was, but this is so important. The only warning about shadow work wouldn't be the one that I think people think. People probably think the warnings are, oh, I had this horrific abuse. What if I start going into a seizure during it, or, I mean, and, those are fine worries also that are legit. But one of the biggest things about shadow work is because we are oftentimes uncovering repressed memories, or we are getting to different beliefs, or we're finding out more about the truth of who we are. When we do shadow work, it will show you clearly what needs to be changed in your life. So if you're not actually ready to change things in your life, don't do shadow work yet. I mean, I'm like saying it's an amazing thing, and it is the thing that will probably help things. But if you're not ready to change, you will go through a really dip in time until you are ready to change, of the worst dark night of the soul ever, because you're going to know everything you didn't want to see is going to come up for you to look at, which is going to also be like, well, I believe myself to be this victim. Not that you didn't have victim experiences, but as a scarlet letter you wear every day, none of us are actually like walking victims, right? We just have had experiences that can look that way. So if we identify too much of that, and then we stay in a relationship, or we stay in something where we know we're not a victim, but we're experiencing that's going to cause so much discord that it will just be in a lot more pain and suffering. And shadow work, the changes are made at several different of our levels, our emotional level, our mental level, and then, in our physical level. So you're going to have to make physical changes to a lot of things. And if you're not ready to do that, this isn't going to go away, but be okay with the fact that you're not ready yet, and just kind of have it on the back burner, and there will be a catalyst in your life that will finally get there to be like, okay, I'm ready now, and use it at that time. But don't be like talked into it, or do it because it's shadow work chic right now or whatever, because it is something you want to take really seriously, and it can feel awful if you don't think you're ready to make changes.
Right. And I'd like to add to that too. One of my like pet peeves about the way that shadow work is being portrayed on social media is that the fear being like thrown at shadow work, saying, oh my God, it's this terrible thing. I feel like shadow work is awful and it was the most painful thing I've ever gone through. Come on. Like it is painful, but it's painful because you're actually looking at the pain that's already there, and
Right.
you're actually doing the healing that you've already experienced the thing.
Yes.
It's not going to be worse than the experience that you've already experienced. So that, and yes, again, someone with CPTSD here, the healing from your trauma, the things that you have already experienced, is so much fucking better, so much better than living that trauma every single day and every single moment on repeat constantly. If you don't look at it, if you don't heal it, you will have to deal with it for the rest of your life.
Yes.
But you don't have to. You just have to be brave enough to turn around and look, and then just allow it to be what it is.
Yeah.
And so that is the scary part. And yes, again, from some CPTSD guys, yeah, it's scary. It's scary. And I know that it feels like it's going to completely consume you, but you are so much more powerful than that. You are not, if you fall apart because of it, you can put the pieces back together, and you will be stronger and better for it. And so and I get goosebumps talking about this kind of stuff, because if someone is telling you to be afraid of something, that's them, not you. Like that, they're afraid of it because of their own reasons. So it's just like
about it.
So yes, you will go through tissues. Yes, you will do some deep journaling possibly, but it's not scary. And the cool thing about the Foundations program is that you get to go through it with other people that are going through the exact same kind of stuff as you. So you have that support, that whole dark night of the soul aspect where you lose all of your friends and your social connections and you have to start all over again, the Foundations program is that community that will support you through that process and is supporting your authentic self. You don't have to pretend to be somebody that you're not in order to be supported by a community. And those friends and the social connections that you lose during your shadow work process is not a loss.
No.
You're using that reflection of the trauma that you're healing from. So you're not constantly having that projected back at you. You're able to look at that reflection and be like, you are not me anymore. This doesn't fit.
Yes.
So, and you're going to be making space for those people that are supporting your authentic self and not making you be something that you're not in order to be accepted, which is bullshit.
Oh, that's everything. I'm sorry I just have to jump on this because that's another part of it. You will totally change all your friends.
Totally.
But when you really start putting all the awareness on everything and start seeing your patterns, the world isn't going to look like this chaotic soup of like, just, everything just kind of happens, whatever. No, it's like calculated, and it's all synchronicity. It's just, we only think of synchronicity as, there's a bluebird or whatever. And it's like, there's positive ones too, but everything is actually based on synchronicity. We're getting negative synchronicities through our loops of our patterns too. Those are also synchronistic because it happened before. We're just not recognizing them because they're not the fun ones. But when most all of the relationships we have are going to be that the trauma bonded relationships. Right. So in other words, it's that friend that you meet after work to decompress over cocktails because you both hate your bosses, when really you both hate your dad that yelled at you for dropping ice cream cones. So when you both I hate the word deal, actually. Like, I say it all the time and whatever, but it like makes it seem like we're telling our inner child that we're dealing with them. But like when you go back and you resolve that, then you find out, oh my God, a lot of these relationships that I've had, for one, too, coping mechanisms also disappear. Do we know this? I can show you the David Hawkins, Dr. Hawkins map of consciousness shows kind of the different increments of different emotions. And most all of our trauma is going to be those lower level emotions and the frequencies on those. And so while we're in these trauma loops, we're not seeing clearly. We're not able to see truth at all. And when we're not able to see truth and we're constantly just caught up in seeing is believing and the world is happening to me, not for me, then we have to cope with life to survive. So it doesn't matter what coping mechanism, we all have them, and we just keep graduating to new ones that are more socially acceptable until we're a marathon runner or something, you know what I mean? Or like, I meditate a lot, those kind of things, but we're always coping. But at some point, your just natural frequency is going to rise by your new perspectives and pull you out of coping mechanisms. They're just going to drop off you. So it's not like you have to, like, I have to go and do a process on how to quit fill in the blank, shadow work, and loving yourself. And also, we can't love ourselves either. There's so many things, like, you got to love yourself. And part of us like, yeah, that does feel true. But then it's like, but I don't know how to do it. And then we're just caught and sandwiched in this. It's like, you can't love yourself if you're not connected to yourself, and you're afraid to connect to yourself because you didn't have the modeling of that connection in those early times. So that's the training wheels we do, is we give you that connection and mirror that modeling for you so that you're like, oh, that's how it's done. I have all these internalized people that keep me safe. Now I'm going to internalize a Jen Marie or a Jenna that goes in. So I have that voice when a trigger happens to be on my side to teach me how to love myself. And loving yourself is that exploring and the kind of rescuing of the trauma situations when you're a child. So if you're at a point right now where you feel like, I don't love myself, I don't even know how to do that, shadow work. It's literally the answer to every problem that you think that you have, which doesn't also mean that nothing in the world ever is a problem or a challenge again. It's so clear after you've done shadow work for a while and you understand patterns. fucking exciting. It is so
Right.
exciting. Like if you get a trigger, it's like, oh shit, this is in me and it's in my, so I didn't know about this. And because you're armed with what to do with it, it doesn't make it as scary anymore because you know how to do it. It's kind of the difference between, we all kind of know we go to the bathroom a few times a day, right? And
Right.
so it's easy to just like, okay, I know I know about the times or whatever, but what if you just like never knew when you were going to go to the bathroom? Our lives would be a lot, like we'd be wearing diapers and whatever, I mean, it's a lot more stressful. So it's kind of that change where once you're doing shadow work a lot, you're prepared for it. Just like if you go for a hike, you kind of check in with yourself, you know what I mean? It's like the
First
same
of all,
thing.
hold on,
So
can I pause you? I really fucking love that you used a poop analogy.
I always use the poop analogy. All my clients make fun of me because we
you can either
to
shoot
everyone.
yourself or you can learn how to listen to your body.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's actually a running joke with my clients is poop comes into almost every single one of our, it's so funny.
Always. I also want to take, so you covered a lot of super awesome things. But okay, don't wreck. Fuck. Yeah, damn it. Oh yeah. Okay. So I'm kind of backpedaling just a little bit.
Yeah, that's
So
fine.
this is going back to how we are taught at a very young age to repress and ignore very specific emotions, to where sadness isn't allowed, anger isn't allowed, frustration isn't allowed, all sadness, like all of these things are not, you're not allowed to feel these feelings. These feelings are bad and must be avoided at all costs. Our primary caregivers are constantly telling us that is a bad feeling, that's a bad feeling, that's a bad feeling. And so we get into our programming that these feelings must be avoided at all costs. Depression is bad, it's awful, and it needs to be like avoided. Grief is bad and awful and needs to be avoided.
You have 10 days, but after that, yes.
Right.
Grief, yeah.
And so the problem with that is that it puts this, like, it creates this hyper fixation on only good feelings. And so we are only wanting to be happy. We are only wanting to be fulfilled. We are only wanting to feel joy. And then any of time these other feelings come up, we're like, oh my God, something is wrong with me because I feel sadness. Something is wrong with me because I'm depressed. And the truth is that that's just a part of the human experience. The full range of emotions is where our power lies. That our emotions are what tells us what the fuck is going on. And repairing our relationship with our emotions and the full range of emotions is what shadow work also does. It gets you really comfortable with just like seeing how precious sadness is, and how beautiful grief is, and how sacred internal reflection and like depression can be. It's just like, did I cover it?
I have two things I have to say about that. One, just since you said depression, all depression is having a lot of these storylines from our past in our current world doing this, and we think that it shouldn't be happening and that we should be feeling something different for a prolonged time period.
Right.
That's it.
And
it's literally
also,
shadow work that we're repressing for 6 months or more and calling it depression because we're not having some other exciting thing happening in our lives at the time or whatever. Right. But what I also want to say to anyone that's hearing this is that the other beautiful thing about shadow work and how our upbringings are is that sometimes we can, and this is like an example in my household, I would get squeally excited about things and jump up and down. I'm autistic and I get very excited about things that I get excited about. And this was no difference when I was a child. So I'd hop up and down. And if our parents and caregivers are not in touch, because they're not, we all have shadow work. So or trauma. So like if somebody else wasn't allowed to feel a particular emotion, or if we're not matching the same emotions, we can also be shamed for having positive emotions. So let's say I'm 6 and I'm so super excited that like One Direction, well, Michael Jackson at my time or whatever, but like, you know what I mean? Like has a new album, and we go, ah, and then we get the reflection of, calm down. What's wrong? Like, stop it. I'm trying to do the taxes or whatever. We
You're
learn,
embarrassing me.
like we go, so then we learn, oh, okay, well, I know it's not okay for me sad or angry, and now I can't be excited, or I can only be excited when mom's excited too. And there's a lot of people like that get to be hyper vigilant. If you had someone where you walk in the house and your whole life was dependent on how your parent was acting, I'm telling you, this is the work for you, because it means that every single emotion that there is on the list is going to register as not safe or not okay. Right. And so it can be just as damaging. And these are the ones that everyone needs shadow work. It's just the ones that grew up in the overtly abusive situations. Everyone around them kind of knew that they were in a really horrible thing. They could voice, and it made sense. And so actually people that have had the deepest amount of overt trauma tend to get to shadow work on their own a little sooner, because they're getting validation from their stories from people and have already seen therapists. It's actually I'm excited and don't know why that's not okay, and my house is fine, and I'm not being sexually, or, you know, all the abuse ways, you know, at all. It's more just in the like masking kind of families, is everything's okay, when it's like not okay, or it's not lining up with your perspective and point of view, can be so damaging. And people that are in those situations usually come to shadow work a little bit later, because they have no reason to feel like they want to even pay for therapy, because it's like, or like, I don't know what's wrong with me, so we'll blame it on just the latest boss or stress at work, and then be medicated for 10 years before they get into shadow work. And that happens all the time. And then they start like, oh crap, yeah, I haven't been able to express any of the array of emotions.
Right.
So just in case somebody is watching and they're like, wait a minute, I don't have any of these really scary things, but it's like, yeah, it can be. And it can be the worst seeming murdery, rapey stuff or whatever out there can come up in shadow work, but feelings are separate from the beliefs and ideas about them. So I like to look at them kind of like keys on a keyboard. There's as many emotions as there are keys on them, and you play the key, and it's always going to sound the same. It'll be a different kind of like, it'll be in a different song, but it's still the same key, right? And it's the same thing with emotions. And because you've survived all those emotions before, you can do it again. It's just you were dissociated from your body at the time, and that's because it felt like it was big. It felt like it was going to be bigger than what you could handle. So your soul did a really great job of being like, let's go ahead and pull out a little bit to anesthetize you a bit from this. But because of that, that never got back in or felt safe to make that. And that's kind of how that energy is sort of hovering. Right. And I've been told by many people, and kind of see it almost like the auric field has like cheese, or like Swiss cheese. It's almost got like vortex holes that are like time vortices that go back to all these like reels in time. That's the way I see it, or at least some people. Do you have a visual for that when you see people?
I'm not clairvoyant. I'm claircognizant. And so for me, it's just this like deep knowing that it's like I can feel a block, like a door in themselves that they can't get to the other side of. And the frustrating part of like, they know there's a key, they know they can get to the other side of the door, but there's a door here, and now they don't know what to do with it. And the thing is that door was created by it's your door. It's your door, and you can open it, and you have everything that you need in order to open it. You just have to remember, and sometimes you need a little bit of help. And so that's what a shadow work mentor or guide can help you with. So, and from a witchcraft perspective of why shadow work for witches is that,
Mhm.
I mean, are we ready to take it to this next? Were there other things about shadow work you want to cover first?
Yeah,
Because
there's a few things. One
yeah,
very
let's
quick
do that.
thing, and then we'll go into that because that's a super important thing that I didn't even put on there that I think is super important. I already feel like I know what you're going to say, but which is so important to say.
Right.
It's just when it comes to feeling out the emotion, and I don't know the exact studies because I've heard it from a couple different places, but it's somewhere in the round like I've heard it said as a minute and 1 second, and I've heard people say 90 seconds. But either way, no more than like 2 or 3 minutes does it take to actually process an emotion. The reason it feels like we're crying for days on end is because we have a mental process that's connected with it that's telling us that we shouldn't be feeling this way because we learned we shouldn't be feeling this way. And so it's prolonging it over and over, and that can go on again for 70 years. So once we really realize and you get some practice with what it's like to actually feel an emotion, which by the way is just sensing sensations in your body without a storyline.
Right.
Which how many times have we ever done that? We always are like, I'm mad because, or I'm mad because why, or we point at the why, and then we as we're crying and we're screaming and we're emoting. So it seems like we're actually like a mess of emotionality. Even we might be, you're so extra or needy and whatever. It's like, yeah, so we feel like we're really emotional people, but that's the biggest misnomer in this is that yes, you can be hyper emotional seeming person, but if you've ever had a storyline going at the same time, like I can't believe they said that when I did it, you're not feeling your emotions. You're feeling something, but you're feeling the resistance or the I shouldn't be feeling this way feeling signature versus like the actual I'm allowed to feel this anger in my body. And what is that? It's showing up as a sensation. It's a hotness in my cheeks, tingling in my shoulders. Okay, we're breathing without a storyline. See, and without a storyline too makes it a lot less scary when all it is going to be emotions or sensations in your body. And so, and you only have to do that again, like a few times with somebody that can guide you through that to give you that felt, ego wants to have some like, are you sure I can do it thing? To feel safe. So that's why getting help with it will be nice at the beginning, because then you can feel like, oh, I've done this a few times. And then you'll have that as an anchor when you're doing it on your own. Like, okay, I've done this before. It's not as scary as I think it is, and then you'll have the resources on how to do it. Right. Anyway, I just needed to.
Yeah, totally. And are you looking at your list?
Yeah,
I love
let me just make sure, just for my autistic order stuff. Fractalizing of consciousness.
I love your brain, Jenna.
Thank you. Consciousness gets stuck in the past. We're integrating it, due to rupture and resolve, done alone. Hold on. Okay, and where is it done? And yeah, we'll talk about the witchcraft. Where, and I put in our heads or in our bedrooms or whatever. Like in our heads is how we kind of are doing this, or in our bodies is basically where we do that. And then obviously where can be in a therapeutic session or setting. And there's tons of people you can do it online. This is something, as long as you feel safe yourself with it, like all of my clients are online now. So it is absolutely something that you can do as long as you have a good connection and stuff. And I always get like a support person's number while I'm doing it with someone, just in case it's never happened. I just feel like for my own sake, it's like, let's get an emergency contact just for their own safety, to know that if they like drop over in their session, I'll call their, person or whatever. But that's like never even come close to happening. And then anywhere. Oh, shadow work.
And for the record, it's never happened with me either. Like I also often will get like a support person, but it's just like, it doesn't get to that point.
No, it's not near as scary. And it's, as people think it is. And then, okay, so I wrote, shadow work can be done anywhere, but is ideal when you're somewhere where you feel safe, and that it's quiet and free of distractions. And the reason I say where you feel safe is because the whole reason all this happened when we were a child anyway is because we didn't feel safe in our own bodies. Right. So what we need is to have an anchor point of like a Batman beam of like where the inner child or where this scenario does feel safe, which is from the REEL into the REAL of our hearts. And so by being able to like look and touch things around us and actually know that unless there's a bear or gunman in your actual house, which is so not the case, even if you hate somebody that might yell at you in the other room, still in your room with the door shut, you're safe 99.9% of the time. So as long as we have a place that really is believable, that we're physically safe, we can do shadow work. If you genuinely are somewhere where there's someone that really is a threat, that's not a time to do shadow work either. Get yourself obviously somewhere safe first, and then work through it. And then let me just make sure there's nothing else here. Just the when you do it, and that's when you're triggered or a catalyst happens. Anytime that you're feeling an emotion that is distressful. So like often you can do this too, just as often as that happens. And at first there's going to be a bunch of them, because it's almost like your system knows you're going to be doing shadow work, and it's like ready. It wants to integrate. Your whole power is meant to be yours and to be manifesting amazing things instead of being drugged around by all these like weights of our past. We want to be fully in the REAL, which is actually what the ascension is, or what all the ascendant, whatever. The whole idea of an awakening or enlightenment is basically just going from this trauma self, an idea of self, into our brightest self. That's the bright and dark. Our brightest self is free and integrated and is fully in our power and is like a manifesting badass, because we are meant to be on earth to be living it as if it's a buffet without these like balls and chains. And then the other when is just like when you're ready to make the change. And I said when that timing was, and the other one, and then the why, because it anchors us down, because we're in its incessant loops, because we're coping with coping mechanisms that ultimately aren't good for our bodies a lot of times. Why also because it will attract new landscapes in the world based on the switch in beliefs and the relief of the energy we're carrying around. You have to then be a match to something that's matching your inner world. So the landscape of what the world is goes from I call it the apocalypse. You can have right nowadays, if you want to see the apocalypse, you can see it. If you want to see the ascension, heaven on earth, you can see that too. They're both equally available. Sometimes on the same exact earth in front of us. We're just on different channels of the perspective of it. So it lightens us up so much that your world absolutely will lighten. What I was saying before on the challenge wheel, we still have challenges. This is when I was doing the bathroom poop stuff, but we still have challenges. It's not like the world becomes, anyway, but we know exactly when it becomes exciting. We know how to handle it, and we know that, and we can do it very quickly. And we have also, the more we love ourselves and come back and make that connection, we get a super supportive network of people that are just fucking wanting to be there with us all the time. So that doesn't even make it scary anymore, because we are with ourselves. Everyone else wants to be around us. And so that it just becomes so much more enjoyable. And then other causes were physical issues, depression, interferes with life in general.
Right.
And life becomes easier, even the shit. That's when I wrote my note. Okay. So that's all I had in my notes. I won't be looking there anymore. And I didn't even have a complete set of notes right now, but I knew we would just riff. So
yeah, totally.
But yeah, like, okay. And then the shadow work part of it, I think, is the coolest thing of what you're linking with it.
Right. And so to give you kind of the connection between why would witches want to do shadow work? Why do I, as a specializing in teaching new brooms, why I think that shadow work is step one, the number one first place to start before actually creating your own practice in magic or witchcraft in general, before even you decide what you want to specialize in or what tradition you want to explore. And the reason for this is that shadow work is going to connect you with your authentic self. It's your authentic self, your connection with your brighter or higher self, that is where you're getting your information on what the fuck you're supposed to be doing with this incarnation, because there is something that you're supposed to be doing with this incarnation. We're not just living for nothing. We're not just living to suffer. We're here to do something with this. And you don't know really what that is until you sort through all the shoulds that have been piled on you your whole life, all of that social conditioning, all of that trauma, all of that that stuff. You don't really know what's going on until you really get there. Not only that, but you're often in a reaction state. You're just reacting to things that are happening to you. You're reacting, and your reactions are based on traumas that have happened to you. And as witches, you are consciously manipulating energy to manifest your will. And if you are coming from a reactionary place based in trauma, then you are going to perpetuate that reactionary state and that trauma into the world. And all of your spellcrafts are going to be affected by it.
Yes.
All of your workings are going to be affected by it. It's going to be diluted by it. And you are going to cause harm. You're going to cause harm to yourself. You're going to cause harm to everybody around you, because you are not consciously aware of your shadow. You're not consciously aware of those things that you're not even seeing that are a part of your programming. And most witches, I mean, there is polarization, and that's a whole other topic, but most witches are healers and teachers. That's what we do. We want to help. We are born into this incarnation with a deep desire to help, to nurture, to aid others and the world itself. And so by doing shadow work, it's going to clear the way, get you to step into your power so that you're actually effective in manifesting things and a world that is going to help. Yeah, that's very, very, very basically. And once you change, so the root of magic, where that power comes from, is from your fucking feelings. It's from your emotions. Your emotions are what charge your spellcraft. And if you don't have a good relationship with your emotions, then you're not going to be able to really instill those things into your, I mean, the difference is like a firecracker in an atomic bomb. I mean, it's a totally different energy. I'm not saying like a brand new practicing witch without any shadow work is going to be able to manifest things in their world, because that is what the human experience is. We're all able to do it, but you can do it so much better when you have a like real relationship with your entire system, all of your systems, and your connection with the universe at large. So that's the big thing. That's why witches are much more powerful when you do shadow work, and that ability to transmute energy. When you have a good relationship with the full range of emotions, what's coming at you from others does not stick in the same way. It doesn't have anything to hold on to. So you're able to allow that energy to flow through you, and you can transmute it and heal others because of that. You're able to heal your environment because you're able to pull in all of those emotions and transmute it into something that is love and light. And this, I don't want to get confused. I'm not a love and light witch. I'm not like a focus on only that kind of person, but I'm just basically saying that our power is, there's a door there, and you need to open that door in order to really get to what you've got going on, because at this point you're only getting what's through the peephole. And that's like,
and if people haven't like a aversion to the love and light aesthetic too, if we look at love as just the opposite of separation, or love equaling integration, you know, it doesn't have to be barfy like unicorn stuff. If you have more of a dark aesthetic, that's totally fine. But that's all that means, is like the opposite of separation, is how I kind of view that.
Right. In the witchcraft community, there are witches that only focus on love and light, and they shame anything that would be considered dark. They shame anything that is considered self-serving. And so that's why I make the distinction that I am not on that, in that I don't identify in that sect of witchcraft. So
And
that's why
my thought on that might be different than not the witch. What I would say about any magical practice of under any umbrella, I actually think that whatever our dominant frequency based on our belief system is running for us is literally the cap to which our practice can be. And so it's actually, this isn't just like a good idea. It's almost like, just like with shadow work, don't do, like, I mean, I'm not going to say don't do, but just know that what you're casting or what you're doing is literally, it can't provide you anything back from the reflection that your actual vibration is at. And so until your, especially lower 3 chakras are, which is where all the shadow work is, and that's kind of the focus of where, just because our root is basically the house of our inner child, and that all these are where the reals are because they were packed there, or the original story origins of these beliefs. So most people get into magic work, or whether it's whatever route we go to, we're doing it usually out of fear. The reason that we have a want or desire for anything is because we just had something undesirable and we want its opposite. So that's when we literally, that's what lights the fire to want to do magic. But if that's the impetus, that's when things can actually come back and bite us in the ass, because we're just literally throwing out, it doesn't matter what words well, it matters a little bit, but like 10% of the words we're saying versus the 90% of what our actual dominant state is the reflection we get back. Same with, and we're doing I'm doing hosting that behind the curtain thing pretty soon, depending on when you put this up or whatever, but we're doing things, which this will be talked about in this too, is that we can't actually, we're always channeling something, right? So we're channeling whatever frequency we're in. You can be channeling fear, or channeling the third dimension, or just channeling Jenna as a human ego right now. But when we blend more into our brightest self, and when we're in those reals, we can only channel more reals or trauma. Whereas when we're in the REAL and we're connected to the truth of who we are, that there is the portal for us being able to channel or to bring in. It's almost like that's how we sign on to the internet of connection. So it's not to say that we can't get like bits of information here and there that feel kind of cool, but they will also be matching also your level of fear. So anyone going into a practice, and that's why too, that she and I are talking about different perspectives, because like holding a whole class on boundaries is really freaking important, especially for people that haven't done shadow work yet or don't know about it. Yes, right. You can have crazy shit happen, and you need to be prepared and have boundaries set up for that. Right. And at another level in your practice, when you're out of the lower vibrations and have integrated all of that, and you are fully in your power, and like, 80% of your life or more is spent there in that perspective, and for damn sure when you go into practice something that you're able to get yourself there, then you will get it, or you could, just everyone's at different places, but I've noticed that I've come to a place where I don't need to, I'm so far removed from those ideas, and I'm not having a reflection from those fears as much in my regular life because I've done the shadow work, that then boundary work wouldn't be necessary. So just know also, as you go on your spiritual or whatever journey you're on right now, just how many like paradoxes there are within it, because there's different things that are just as equally as true for a certain ladder rung along the way. So if you hear one teacher say like literally the opposite from the other, take a minute and see like, how could it actually be both? And that's why we've kind of teamed up, because I am more in that light and love world of like galactic-y angels and all that kind of stuff. And you're more, though I've done all the witchy stuff too. I mean, not like in a priestess way, but like in a aesthetic way and in a like dark ceremonies. And I like do metal and was, you know, like the gothy kind of feelings and those kind of things that sometimes comes with it. But anyway, sorry, I don't remember what's going on now, but like, I think that it's just really important to know where you are with your shadow work, where you are with how you feel about yourself, and be honest with that. And just so you got all the resources to get you there and on every step of the way. And we're sort of still in talks of having kind of a meld of sort of a sister company idea. I don't know how much we want to talk about that or whatever. Maybe you can cut this out. But I just, you know, because there's so many different things on the journey, that there's so many fun things to do. Once you're in that real, REAL, you can go anywhere with it, and it may change, you know?
And Jenna and I often talk about how when you scale out far enough, you can see how everything is all connected.
Yes.
And so once you, but in the beginning, when you're working, just starting out your shadow work, it's really important that you stay kind of scaled in. And then you're going to gradually start scaling out and seeing more of it as your understanding evolves, and as your relationship with the universe and your relationships with everything evolves as well.
Yeah.
So, okay, do you think we covered the basics of shadow work? There, like Jenna said, we could talk for hours about this, because it's a huge broad topic with so many perspectives, and it is woven into every single magical practice and tradition and religion, like of all time. Shadow work or some kind of form of this is everywhere. There's so many modalities and ways of approaching it and ways of thinking about it. It's that important.
Yeah.
That there's lots of ways of describing it.
Yeah, I think actually we covered a lot on this so far. And I literally on each one of these could do not even just an hour on, but like a whole series on each one of these topics. I seriously could go so in. And then also being a practitioner, there's this whole other end of the world of not only being the student of it, but being the teacher of it. And then there's all the stuff too on how to guide and this and that. And we also know that a lot of people, as she mentioned before, who are witches or who are having some sort of spiritual call in their lives, have been through so much this wounding. And once we have integrated the shadow that we are the medicine. We are the medicine wherever we were and what we were carrying before, all those like balls and chains. Once they come in and we've integrated them and we have that lived experience, we can just sit by someone on the bus and they can be affected by the medicine of what we have integrated. So we literally we all are the healers of the world. And so it's very common that as you get through this process, you might discover, holy crap, this is not only something I'm going through and having the resources for, but eventually, hopefully the structures will get there where there can even be training programs or whatever to get people that feel like they want to help in this way, how to support too. And then that's a whole nother thing to go into. So this is just an endless thing that you can commit to as little or as much as you want to. But once you get it rolling, boy, it's just so fun that it's like hard to not. And I remember telling you a long time ago, I'm like, you're going to do this. You're going to do this. You need to be a coach of this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? It's because it's very addictive. Transformation there's nothing more addictive to me than watching human transformation. It's so beautiful.
Yes, I love it. I'm into it. I'm so into it. And like watching what's happening in the Discord, like we watch, we see, we don't always get to interact all the time, but seeing you guys like really step up and support each other is just Oh my God. Like
Yeah.
I'm humbled daily by what is happening in the Discord on a daily basis. And the level of authenticity and growth and support and expansion that's just like to be able to witness that is just
Mm-hmm.
very humbling, very, 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 very humbling.
So
And
touching.
it's just like, yes, I go through these like back and forth of just like crying to just the jumping around. I'm stimming. I'm
Yeah.
so like,
Yeah.
there's so much going on. It's just like, it's so great. It's so great to watch. So if we decide to post this, then thanks for sticking this long. I think this couple hours we've been
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about this.
Right. God, what is it? I don't know.
Right. But if you guys want us to expand on this and want us to do multiple workshops on like diving into the different aspects of shadow, which we're going to do anyway,
I already have.
because
Yeah.
there's so much here, but
Yeah.
it was really important for us to get just the basics so that
Yeah.
you guys have an understanding of what it is that we're talking about, and you're able to kind of help each other. And as new members are joining, you're able to explain it to them
Yes.
too from your
I
perspective.
love that.
So,
That's another thing I love about the Discord too, is how much people are just like handling things. They're helping and helping new members feel so welcome. I'm gonna cry.
I
It's
know
like,
it's like,
that is so amazing, and it is a support group, but if people share things, it feels like they're kind of ready to be held and open to being received. Whereas I've been in so many groups, and this again, when I wasn't integrated to these things personally, that's why I was a meth tone, but like there was so many things that I was in before that was just nothing but just the reels over and over and over without any desire to receive support or love or anything with it or any desire to change. And it does feel like this group is like, this is where we are, no judgment. We're here to help. It doesn't matter where you are, but like it's so, so supportive and amazing. And like, I couldn't be more thrilled with seeing that in all the members. Like when I feel into the energy, it's like a dream come true.
yep, it really is. It really is. And so I think we covered it. I think I'm going to stop the recording because
Okay.
I can,
Yeah.
because I think that I really feel like we got a good
Sounds
solid
good. Yeah.
thing.
Cut
I
it
just
as
have to
short as
figure
you
out, let me figure out how to stop the recording. Okay, you're right. Get set. Bye guys.
did it stop?